beat me up. Maya, start fire, light it up. S and X on the airwaves now. Truth in the static, clear somehow. I've been a seeker since day one, with a pocket full of doubt and a red sun. Coley, Weber, voice so clear. Maya, start fire, bring that near. Unite the ones who feel too deep. Wake that fire, raise it up from sleep. ColeyUFO, beat me up. Beat me up. Maya, start fire, light it up. Light it up. S and X, we rise as one. Truth dream, here we come. ColeyUFO, Maya, start fire, light it up. Coley Weber, aka ColeyUFO, hot supreme when the questions flow. Experiencer with a steady hand, pointing souls to the promised land. Maya, star fire, healer in flame. Master energy, calling your name. Impact glow in the midnight air. Take that journey if you dare. Coley Weber, vision clear. SNX uniting year by year. Maya, star fire, spark and guide. Open the door and step inside. ColeyUFO, beat me up. Beat me up. Maya, star fire, light it up. Light it up. S and X, we rise as one. Truth dream, here we come. Fuck me up. Maya, star fire, light it up. Beyond disclosure, we keep it real. Heart to heart, that's the deal. Seekers gather, names in flight. One true path in the neon night. One true path in the neon night. ColeyUFO, beat me up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SNX Radio. I'm Coley, and tonight, Thursday, 6 p.m., we've got Jay Austin with us. And Jay, they've been hearing about you. Now I've been talking about it for a while, so it's welcome. How's everything going in the UK?
Very well, thank you. And I believe happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. I forgot. I got so excited. Derrel Sims is honestly, he's so great. And I've just so many things he's helped me see a balanced perspective of. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I really didn't. Last time it was his birthday. So I was like, man, what better way than to spend my birthday with Jay and Derrel and, you know, of course, our chat. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, there's no place I'd rather be. So I thank you for that. And I thank everybody who's here. Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. But yeah, before we get started too, I just want to run through chat really quick and see everybody. And two, we are streaming on X, Facebook, and then two, Jay, tell them where they can find your stream also really quickly.
So Anomalies Archives, both on Facebook and over on Instagram tonight. We are live.
That's awesome. Do you know Instagram? Did you go hit the live after I went?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool, because I'm on Instagram, two places, but I couldn't figure out why it wasn't going through the first time, and here I wasn't clicking it, so I just wanted to make sure that that would stink. So yeah, so anyway, I'm just going to go through chat really quickly and see who's all here and say hello before we bring Derrel out. I saw the chat popping earlier, but yeah, it's everybody. It's so great to see you. I see so many people. I have to go to the top. Don't ever stop commenting. But Amy Joe, and welcome. Yes, new member. That's awesome. Pops, great to see you. And if you guys don't know, Monday, second Monday of the month, Pops has his cryptid channel, which is Lori Ladd, Keith, and we have Cindy Bailey. So, and we're going to also feature Carl Supp. That'll be Monday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hey, Ashes, good to see you. Lori Ladd, it's nice to see you. And we got Sherry, and welcome. Let's see here. I got the Area 51. It's good to see you always. Goblin, nice to see you. Glad you guys could make it. Harry Carey, welcome. Amy, so glad you're a member now. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate your support. And Diane Oh, Diane, you're so nice. Diane is definitely, she's so awesome. And there we got, if you guys have not followed Jay over on Facebook, definitely go and follow his group. He's got some awesome information in there. William Nighthawk, thank you. I appreciate that. No, that's great. AZOAZ, nice to see you. Welcome. And there's Lori Ladd, Flamethrower Lori, and Cindy. Oh, nice to see you, Cindy. Yep, Monday, definitely check them out. Kurt W75 is in the house. Awesome to see you, Standing Stones. Great. I'm so glad everybody's here. We're here for one of my favorite and my birthday. This is awesome. And then we have, I just don't want to miss anybody. I see this every time. I know I saw Poncho on here and Mr. Catfish. What channel, their channel did I see you on? And I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, it's nice to see you again. It's been a long time. So that's cool. Some of the old people from SOR, like Area 51. And I mean, that's awesome. I mean, those are the good old days back then. Poncho, I knew I saw you. And welcome. It's good to see you back. And Paranormal Portal, great to see you. And JT True Seeker, always a pleasure. And anybody who I missed, I apologize. I definitely that's everybody. It's going so quickly. But so without further ado, let's bring Derrel W. Sims out, the alien hunter. He's got some great information and he really ties into a lot of, and I'm not going to tell Jay's story. I'm kind of a big mouth sometimes. I'll just but we're both experiencers. So it's really kind of puts stuff into a perspective. So without further ado, one of my favorite people, here we go, is Derrel Sims. And Derrel, for people who don't know you, the alien hunter, do you want to tell them who you are?
I'm Derrel Sims, the alien hunter.
You've got so many great credentials that I could go on and on, but I love listening to you. I do. You just have you just make a lot of sense. So,
well, hopefully I'll make a little more sense tonight. But I'm a licensed private investigator in the state of Texas. I volunteered during the Vietnam War and became a soldier there and was sheep dipped or placed into the Central Intelligence Agency out of the military for 2 years. And then I spent the rest of my tour in Korea in that theater. And ever since then, I've been a private investigator in the state of Texas, and that's what I currently am today. So basically, I'm like you two guys. I have experienced abductions since I was 4 years old. It stopped violently when I was 17. And ever since then, I thought it was over, and I thought that's great. But the problem is it came and got my son. And the problem is with me, I'm a big guy. I can live with any kind of problem. But when you come after my kids, it's a new ball game. You're on my wanted poster now.
Yeah. I totally get that. So one of the first questions, Derrel, I kind of wanted to ask you is, after decades of investigating alleged extraterrestrial encounters, what first convinced you that this phenomenon deserved some serious attention? Was it that? Did it start with your son?
Well, it actually started with me at 4 years old. The entity had come into my room, and of course, at 4 years old, I didn't know anything. I mean, 4-year-old kids don't know much of anything. No. But I noticed the entity very closely. It had perfectly round eyes. I mean, about the size of silver dollars. They were perfectly round, not like the Hollywood version you see today. Back then, they made different models. And that particular entity, I noticed he was, the best way to describe him, his eyes were deep black. He had no nostrils other than 2 little pinholes, no ears, a slit for a mouth. And I noticed he didn't have any mammary glands. He didn't have a navel, and he didn't have a TT, as a kid would say. This really stunned me because it was wintertime and it was very cold outside. How could he get in my house? First of all, I didn't know he had walked through the wall. But the point is that that during the course of the abduction, I noticed that these particular things about him, and I didn't know what all that meant at 4 years old. But something happened at age 4 that changed a lot of my perspective about the whole phenomena, because for some bizarre reason, and I don't know why, but I was able to hear, you can hear the conversation they have with you, because it's voice to skull, so to speak, or skull to skull. And it's like, you hear that. But something happened in my event that forever changed every one of my events after that. Yeah. I could hear him talking to the other aliens in the room. Now that was incredible. I liken it to what we call hot miking. Like when a president, like Obama, got caught hot miking, talking to President Putin one day saying, when I get reelected, we'll take care of that. Don't even worry about it. And he looked up and everybody realized, you're on a mic, sir. And he got caught. Yeah. So that's what happened. So every one of my abduction events, they don't realize I'm listening to them talk to each other versus what they tell us. What they tell us is vastly different than what they're discussing.
And was it just, sorry, just to interrupt, was it just the one being that you could see clearly, or could you see the others?
I didn't know there were others in the room. I couldn't see them, and or wherever they were at, but I could overhear their conversations just like I'm listening to you.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
And I never let them know that I knew, so I've kept it quiet, and that colored my experience more than anything. Yeah. Because what people say, I mean, there's two different ways to look at things. One is behavior is what they do over and over. Not what they say, but what they do. What they were telling us was one thing, but what they were doing was something different.
Yeah. And what age did you put sort of 2 and 2 together and connect the dots with this being ET?
Well, I didn't know what an ET was at age 4. Yeah. That was 1952. Nobody knew what an alien was. Nobody had a clue. No. And so my parents thought I'd had a bad dream, and because I never told them. And finally, my mother said, "I saw you on that Ancient Alien program the other night, showing your physical evidence." She said, "Well, they said you were an abductee." Well, that's not right. You're an investigator. I looked. I said, "Mom, that's not completely true." I said, "I'm an abductee as well." She said, "Well, why did you never tell us?" Now she's nearly 90-some years old, and I've never even told her. She just found out on TV. And I said, I I didn't want to see that dumb-looking Boo Radley look on your face if I ever told you. So I just kept it quiet all this time.
Yeah. Plus, how do you kind of, put that into context at that age? As Coley alluded to, I've had my own experiences myself. And sometimes, it is very lonely when you have one of these experiences because, who do you tell without them thinking, your cheese is slid off the cracker, so to speak. There's that preconception comes with that.
Yeah, I just didn't have a clue what they were, who they were, what they were doing. But I had about 10 experiences over 13 years. At age 17, they ended. But the point is that each of the entities, I met different kinds of entities in my events. And the strangest thing that I finally put together as an investigator later is, why didn't you see these events were serial? Yeah. That they're all connected. I never connected any of the dots. Yeah. They were just like separate events. I couldn't figure out what's that all about. And, isn't it weird? I can still recognize that same guy that picks me up every time, but I never put it together. And it took me years of investigating to figure out what was really going on. And one of the things I've learned is that if you've seen a UFO, been close to a UFO, or close to an alien, they install what I refer to as an app in you. Like you have an app in your phone, they put an app in you. And the app is not a physical thing. And one of the apps that you can find on almost every abductee or experiencer out there is the app that you will ignore, hide, or destroy your own evidence.
Wow.
It is absolutely amazing. When I was in the UK, meeting you that time in Manchester, a young girl came up about 15 years old, telling me an incredible story, wonderful evidence. Her father brought her there to meet me. And I said, I told him, I said, you need to know that this app is in almost every abductee, and they will ignore, hide, or destroy their own evidence. And he said, well, I don't know what that means. I said, watch. So I looked at his daughter and I said, okay, you wanted me to, your dad brought you here for me to review your case. She said, that's right. He said, you were the best investigator in the U.S. and all that. I said, well, I don't know that to be true. I'm just pretty thorough.
Yeah.
And I said, I want you to go down and get some x-rays for me tomorrow. She said, no. I won't do that. He said, but you came here to talk to him. Tell him honestly that I'm not going to give him any evidence. Wow. And she had no idea why the answer was no.
And that's down to this app.
It happens all the time. That's why I should have tons of evidence. I've got a lot of evidence, but it's taken me 50 years to put it together. I should have 10 times that much evidence. But people will not come, most of them will not come forward with real evidence. They won't do it.
Yeah. Just next question, I suppose, would be, obviously, you've been called the alien hunter for years now. What's the one case that still keeps you up at night?
Oh, goodness. The most important one was the one where I took all my investigative skills and policing skills and tradecraft skills learned in the CIA, and I applied it to the alien. I took some information I found in an abductee that I thought was damning to the alien. And I got a contactee, volunteered, and I installed it in her as if it were her own memory, because she gets abducted all the time. And when they abducted her the next time, within 2 weeks after that abduction, when she blurted out all that information, it went like a virus into the hive, so to speak. Yeah. And they picked up 8 of our people in 2 states and several cities in a double mass abduction on December 8th, 1992 and December 11th. And we got more physical evidence out of that case than we had out of all of the cases we had at the time. Wow. Now, the reason that's significant is because the alien contacted me up through my abductees because they want to know what I was doing and how I did it. How did I get past their security, so to speak? Yeah. And they were really upset by it. They sent 2 guys from what I call mid-level management. These are beings that you're never, ever going to meet, and you're never going to see them in the abduction. Yeah. But all the 7 other aliens that people call the species, they're not. The 7 of them were standing there, including Bigfoot, in line in front of the guy from mid-level management. And he wanted to know how I did it and how the whole night. He got my senior investigator and the lady, the 2 primary witnesses, and questioned him to no end. It was the biggest case. It's phenomenal. The reason I say the case is neat is because some people were in Japan at the time filming the moon. Guess where the massive craft was, where they were all taken. So they were all taking small craft to a massive one. And my senior investigators and engineers said that craft was 50 miles thick and 600 miles across. Wow. And I said, well, that sounds great, Dale, but that's kind of a big story to be telling. And he said, I thought you'd say that. And he handed me the video. He said some astronomers were videoing the moon during the same time as the mass abduction. And I think we have the craft right here in front of the moon on their film. Absolutely a stunning case. Stunning.
How long do you think this has been going on for? Do you think it's since early, civilization of humans being on this planet, or?
Well, to answer that question, I have to divide things up a little bit.
Yeah.
The simple answer to the question of abduction and contact, it's been going on for about 200 years. That's all.
Okay.
Now, the question is, has the alien and those who made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured them been around longer than that? Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But it was a different program back then. They had different programs that involved mankind from literally Genesis 6 to now. And but there are different programs, and people don't identify it because they don't know what the alien's up to. And it's not even the alien; it's the ones who made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured them. Alien is just a program.
Yeah,
they're just a program that's been going on for 200 years, and that program's almost over, by the way, according to them.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Does this tie in, obviously, with the alleged meeting between Eisenhower and these aliens at Holman Air Force Base?
Well, I've heard these stories and I've reviewed them for some time. First of all, I lived at Holman Air Force Base.
Okay,
I was on the judo team there.
Yeah,
and my dad and I built special buildings out there at White Sands Proving Grounds. Because everybody talks about Area 51 like it's the holy land of the intelligence community. But if you go between Las Cruces and White Sands or Holloman Air Force Base, there's a gigantic sign on both ends of the road there. It says, "Do not pull your camera out. Do not take any pictures. You will be arrested. You will be arraigned in front of a federal magistrate," and they mean it.
Yeah.
If you even pull a camera out. And that's nothing but highway and desert in between.
Yeah.
But that is one of the most secretive places on the planet. Always has been.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about disclosure at the moment. I believe Jeremy Corbell has just put out a tweet, just literally within the last 5 to 10 minutes, saying that tomorrow's going to be the rollout of the UFO files. I say that in abbreviated. Do you think we're closer than ever to an official disclosure, or are we only seeing a controlled narrative?
The official disclosure is going to be just like the one in 1947 in the Roswell crash.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one. You're going to like it. It's not going to be the truth, but you're going to like the answer.
Yeah.
It's called a cover story. A cover story is a lie. But they've been waiting for 50 years to tell you a new one. So get ready for it.
That's going to be good.
Do you think it's going to be like a staged alien invasion, or do you know what it's going to be? I'm right with you on it. I'm just wondering, will the people freak out though? Or are they going to be able to like mentally handle this?
No, I think about half the population will say, "Oh, well, not a very big deal." I mean, that's like the alien telling you, "I am from Zeta Reticuli." Well, where's that at? Well, it's out there so far you can barely see it with a telescope. But if you study the alien close up, and if you study this phenomena, not with a camera and a notebook, so to speak, but actually get in the field, you'll find the aliens actually much, 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 much closer than that. They're Norm Bergstrom, who is a NASA astronomer, wrote a book called what was the name of it? It had to do with Saturn, the rings of Saturn, and he talked about the alien being in the rings of Saturn. He said they're there now. They never fired him at NASA. He furnished photographs to certain people not many, but to certain people in the UFO community of craft hundreds of miles long.
Wow, that's incredible.
NASA footage. But I promise you that the United States government's not going to furnish those films for you. You're going to get a foggy film of a triangular type craft over about a couple hundred feet above a nuclear carrier. That's I promise you, they got cameras of 10,000 times better than that.
Yeah, plausible deniability, right?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you've interviewed countless experience experiences over the years, are there any common patterns or details that repeatedly emerge from these encounters?
There are. There are not only there are the contact event, whatever that is, will be interpreted by you or you one of two ways. You'll either turn into an abductee or a contactee. There's actually three. An abductee, a contactee is what I call a honeybee. They're wonderful people. They're kind. They're gentle. They make honey for the alien and don't have a clue. That's why I call them honeybees. They don't know. They think the funny little man in the white suit with the black eyes who steals their honey is probably their best friend.
Yeah.
The second group of people, that, in other words, the honeybees are called contactees. They think the aliens here to save the planet, fix ozone hole, do all these wonderful things, upgrade your DNA, none of which they've done yet. But out of 200 years, you'd think they'd be further along with the program than that.
Yeah.
The second person is someone like me. When you kidnap me, I'm going to be offended. I'm not going to like it. So I call people like me an abductee, the killer bees. What's a killer bee? A killer bee is if you ever been around honeybees and killer bees, two different kinds.
Yeah.
Honeybees won't mess with you if you'll just be very careful. Treat them really good and make them think that you're their friend and you're not going to do anything bad. If you mess with a killer bee nest, I promise you, they're all going to come after you at one time, all of them, and they'll sting you to death if they can. They protect their own and their hive with ferocity, like their children.
Interesting.
The third type of person that happens that you never hear anything about them in the UFO world are people who are taken but don't know they were taken. They're not abductees or contactees. They don't even know they've been taken. I work with one of those every once in a while, and it's absolutely. Last one I worked with was an engineer, and she said, to answer your other part of your question, should I filled out your forms and out of like 53 of these, 55 of these things, 53 of them are true for me. I think your whole program's nuts, crazy, and I don't believe a word of it. I said, okay. She said, that doesn't offend you? I said, not at all. I said, if you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. Doesn't make any difference to me. And anyway, 2 years later, she met me with a couple of friends and met me in Phoenix and said, I have to know.
Wow.
I said, you are a dear friend of mine. May I help you? And she said, yes. I said, please don't do this.
Yeah.
I'm really good at what I do. I said, you remind me of Pandora. You're fixing to open a box. You're never going to get closed, and you're going to wish you hadn't opened it.
Yeah.
Please don't do this. And she said, I like you have to know. And I said, I did. And so long story short is I worked with her for about 2.5 hours. And when I brought her out of her state, she cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. She said, oh my God, it's just been going on since I was 4.
Wow.
And as soon as they took her by the hand inside the craft on the right-hand side, they were mutilating a cow in one room. It was still alive. And she said, why are they hurting that cow? It says, come forward. And they took her to her own room and all that. But the point is that these are people that don't even know they've been taken. They have no clue at all.
Yeah.
But the second part of your question is, are there any other ways? Yes, other than the missing time and that sort of thing. Yes, those are true. But what we're looking for, we developed some statistics among the abductees. Like a number of the abductees have, not all of them, certainly not all of them, have a rare drug allergy to procaines, xylocaine, novocaine, lidocaine. And it's just really weird. How I found that out, I told my dentist. I went to a dentist when I was 18 years old, and he gave me 2 or 3 shots with novocaine, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It's dead in my skin. But when he hit me with that drill, I like jumped out of the chair. It did not stop the pain at all. And he said, I can't give you any more Novocaine. I just can't do it. And we started checking abductees, and a small percentage of them have this rare drug allergy to procaines, Novocaine, lidocaine, xylocaine, and so on, cocaine, any of the cane family.
Yeah.
And the hives go from redness of skin to coma.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's one of the stats. And another one of the stats is, and I don't like to mention this because you're crazies out there, you're therapists who hate this subject, want to come after abductees and contactees, make them look like they're nuts. And as Dr. John Mack said before he passed away, these people do not exhibit any psychopathology that shows them to be incapacitated at all. They are perfectly normal people. And so having said that, I'm saying this. One of the questions on our questionnaire is, have you ever thought about harming yourself? And it wasn't your thought. And answer, for the people who answer that question, a lot of people won't answer it, but the ones who do answer it, that answer in the affirmative, they say yes, and they all admit the same thing. That was never my thought. I've never thought about harming myself, but I had the thought of it. Somebody placed it. That's called an app. I had that thought placed in me by the alien.
How much of this do you think could be hereditary? Passed through, generations of family.
Well, I think I have to amplify that a little bit, if I may. It's not contagious. You don't inherit it.
Okay.
What happens is that people are taken sometimes in the same family lineage. That part is true. But it doesn't mean everybody's going to be taken in your family. In other words, in my family, all the males were taken, none of the females. And that's really weird, and only in one family. But if you talk to your aunt and uncle and so on, if you're an abductee or contactee, and ask them about that experience privately, not in front of anybody, you'll be shocked at some of the answers you'll get. The answers as far back as 200 years. Yes. Not everybody, just certain people in your lineage, because they're interested in the lineage. It's not even you. It's the lineage. You're not special or perfect or wonderful. It's not about that.
Yeah. Is it anything to do with certain blood types or blood groupings as well, like rhesus negative and things like that?
Funny you should bring that up.
I asked him last. I may be negative. I'm always looking for answers.
Well, okay then. We had a stem cell specialist come in and speak to our Houston UFO Network organization now. And I told her, I said, when you come there to speak to our UFO group, I said, there's the same guy that's going to show up. He does this to everybody, every speaker. He bones up on everything he can, and then he tries to get in there and prove how smart he is and how dumb you are. I said, I just want you to know you're welcome to take care of him right there on the spot if you want to, any way you want to. She said, anyway. I said, just get him. I said, he'll deserve it. You'll see him. And as soon as she started on, he said, well, wait a minute. What about RH negative? And she said, who are you? I'm so-and-so. And she said, when I want to know anything about blood types and the UFO phenomena, I come to Mr. Sims and ask him. Said, I'm the specialist that works in blood in my field. You don't know anything. You think you do, but you don't. You're just an idiot. And said, now I'm going to show you how big an idiot you are. So he said, well, RS negative. She says, shut up. You don't know anything about blood. So she starts off and she went through a bunch of incredible presentations. Wonderful woman. And she said, first of all, let's talk about RH negative blood types and their supposed connection to the UFO phenomena. It's one of the most persistent crossover theories between biology and ufology. She said, I'm going to pull up an RH negative blood. And she showed it. And she said, you see that little number outside the RH negative? She said, there are over 50 types of that one RH negative.
Wow.
She said, now, which one are you, smartass? She said, now, you see that other number at the bottom? She said, that's the stuff that tells us that there may be hundreds more that we don't know about.
Yeah.
You don't know anything. So I want you to shut your mouth and sit there and keep quiet, or I'm going to nail you to the cross before this is over. And he never said another word. I mean, he just
zipped.
But there's RH positive and RH negative.
Yeah.
This is
what about RH null?
Well, what I want to do, if you like, I want to send this to you,
sure,
so that you can look at it. It's quite involved, and first of all, there's no connection between RH negative being none of the blood types show they were from the alien, and like she told him, if you're RH negative and you think that's the rhesus monkey syndrome, she said, you may be one. Not an alien, but a baboon or something. Anyway, he just shut up. I mean, this woman's she's gonna hurt you really bad, you know. So anyway, there's a missing link argument that the RH people do. We're interested in data, not opinions. Opinions don't mean anything. The one of the things I mentioned when I was in Roswell, I talked a little bit about the RH negative blood found among the Basque people of northern France and northern Spain. And anyway, the two people stood up in the middle of that conference and said, we're both Basque. I said, you both RH negative? They said, yes. I said, may I make an observation without upsetting you? He said, fire away. He said, you got the goods. I said, the Basque connection is fascinating because they are like a lot of Native American types. They're very tribal. They'll, you mess with them, they'll bust your head in. I mean, you guys have fought all your existence. You're one of the oldest populations on the earth, and you have the highest level of RH negative blood anywhere. And and you're an old population. And what's fascinating is most of the other populations aren't, but you are. And anyway, we've done statistics with blood types. Of course, everybody always asks me, what blood type are you, Derrel? I said, O negative. I can contribute to anybody. Isn't that great? If you get injured, I can contribute to you and I can save your life. If I'm RH negative, what's that going to do for you? Unless you're a monkey. Anyway, I'll be glad to send this to you and let you look it over, draw your own conclusions. But that's it's just fun stuff to study. But she, needless to say, put him in his place, and she answered a bunch of questions. Of course, everybody had a lot of them. Therefore, brilliant lady, and she's an abductee, by the way, and unbelievable cases. We could spend the whole night just on her one case alone. Just one.
Wow. What's the connection? Do you know, Derrel? I was a gate kid. I never directly connected it. Do you have you seen any connections with that in the phenomenon?
And with the what?
The GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program. Oh,
okay. That's yes. There are several studies done in Australia and different places on kids that they call them rainbow children or the GATE program, whatever. I've heard these stories for a long time. I have my own program for those who want to play. You can email me and I'll send it to you. And it's called 6 Reasons Why the Alien Picked You Up. And So what does that mean? In that program, I do my best to prove to you, without leading you at all, that if you're an abductee or a contactee, you were chosen for different reasons. And maybe one or more. I said, I can give you at least 6, but there may be 100, but there's at least 6 reasons they're taking you for sure. And after I give the 6 reasons, then I tell people, what I'd like for you to do is take my 6 reasons test. And in it, I give you some examples of each one. And then I tell you, I want you to go ahead and brag. Tell me the truth. And that you get to answer all kinds of fun questions. And it's amazing, some of the answers I get from abductees. Amazing stuff. And what many, like for instance, the first 2 surgeries we did for the implants, a guy he literally looked like Grizzly Adams with overalls, beard, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And he said, ain't nothing special about me. I said, Pat Parnello, go feed that garbage to somebody else. I know you. I'm just a maintenance man at an apartment complex. That's all I am. I said, no, that's what you do. That's not who you are. You're not going to fool me. I said, you're a computer genius and you're self-taught and nobody even knows it. And you also work in an apartment complex doing repairs. I get that. But that's not who you are. That's just what you're doing for a living. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story about him that nobody will believe this. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
We just found out a few years ago, before Pat passed away, that the intelligence community had contacted him. He kept having these dreams about these 3 intertwined Moebius strips. A Moebius strip is a piece of paper, like a long strip of paper. Instead of sticking it together like a chain, you twist it and then glue it. And it's only got one side at that point. The point is that those 3 Moebius strips kept him up mathematically for months. One night he called me and said, oh my God, I got it. After that, I didn't know it until we found out much later. The intelligence community contacted him about his math and took him to a special laboratory. And they apparently mathematically computed, it looked like a rail gun is the only thing I can describe.
Yeah.
Kind of a rail gun, but with his mathematics in it as the energy for whatever that thing was. It fired a round from the rail gun, whatever that, I'm assuming it's rail gun. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Fired it through a concrete wall that thick. They found the projectile 32 miles away.
Wow.
So, all these abductees are crazy and they're making all this up. No, they're actually not. Like I told him, you're a genius and I know it. And you can tell everybody anything you want to, but I know your overalls don't fool me at all.
Huh.
But the weird thing about the 3 Moebius strips is that the second lady, the lady we did the first surgery on, I never let them talk to each other. She describes the inside of the craft, a pretty good sized craft she was in, and it had 3 gigantic tubes that were about a 1.5 foot thick, and it had a bowling ball like thing going through each one of them in a figure 8 form, in a Moebius strip form, 3 of them. How did they both get the same information? He in a math form and her in a visual form. I never ever let them talk to each other. Never have.
Wow.
And that just gives you an idea of the stuff we find out because we do our homework on our abductees.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Do you believe physical evidence is the missing key that could finally force governments to acknowledge the phenomenon publicly?
Not really. We've had downed UFOs, physical evidence. I've conducted 27 surgical interventions for the alleged alien implant from India to the United States. How has that changed the world?
Yeah.
None. Doesn't mean anything. Does it support our case? Of course it does. But it's like a guy came to me one time. He said, "I don't believe in all this stuff." I said, "Okay." I said, "May I use your argument on you?" He said, "Sure." I said, "I don't believe in the Great Wall of China either." Well, it exists. That's so you say.
Yeah.
Well, I got pictures of it. I said, "I got pictures of UFOs."
Yeah.
Well, but I've seen the Great Wall of China. I said, "I've seen UFOs." I said, "What you need to understand, sir, is just because you haven't seen something or you didn't experience something doesn't mean that anyone else that experiences anything different or other than your knowledge is automatically a liar."
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're talking about. In fact, it was a scientist at Shelham University there in the UK. He said, "Well, I think all this is a bunch of garbage." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, you're not a scientist." He said, "I am. I teach here." And I said, "No, you're not a scientist. You're a psychic. That's what you are."
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" I said, "Because a scientist would have asked me, what evidence do you have to support your case?" I would have answered you. You didn't do that. You said, "This is all a bunch of crap. I don't believe any of it." And I said, "So you asked you did what a psychic knew. You automatically knew everything was whatever."
Yeah.
Without asking any questions. Well, wait a minute. Do you have any evidence? I said, "You see that 400-page booklet over there? That's just the evidence on the implant work alone." "Well, I didn't know." I said, "That's not the point. Your thinking is flawed even as a scientist."
Yeah.
You're willing to debunk something without even looking at it. I said, "That's like me saying, I don't believe you even teach here."
Excuse me. That's crazy because, obviously one of the things that's been alluded to recently is Dr. Gary Nolan, Stanford professor, immunologist. And I believe he's been looking into some of the physiological effects of people, coming into close proximity with UAP or UFOs.
That's true.
I think it was Lou was saying he found a part of the brain. I forget the exact name of it, but this part of the brain.
Pineal caught it.
Correct, yeah. But it's largely redundant in a lot of human beings, and it was one consistency they found in experiences or abductees.
Sure.
They found what? Say that again. I'm sorry. They found what in the area? Are you talking about in the? I have something in my brain, is why I'm like stopping.
It's a pineal gland. It caught it.
That's where I have the kidney bean thing that I have in my brain that they say that nobody's been able to figure out is in that exact area.
Well, Coley, it may be a kidney bean. I don't know.
No, it's
I'm
not.
messing with you.
Oh, I was like, I'm real serious too, Derrel. I'm like, no, it's really not. Oh my God.
If it's in the brain, it's not a kidney bean.
No. Well, I mean, I know, but it went in front of a team of surgeons at Mayo Clinic and at Johns Hopkins. Nobody could figure it out. Well, I finally just happened. I had hard copies that I had taken that I was supposed to return to Mayo Clinic, but I didn't. And I took it and I had them scanned this AI and it came, it says it's right in that area. And I was like, oh my gosh, now this is getting crazier.
Yeah. If you see, you have evidence like that, send it to me. The reason that that's important is because it establishes the fact that you didn't do that. You can show me scratches on you or bruises and people, your skeptics will say, you scratched yourself. You had somebody do that. You didn't put that thing in your brain.
No, gosh, no. Somebody doxed it on X. Even I don't know how they got a hold of the hard copies, but they did, and they were telling everybody on. So I would even pull it up. But the weirder part is I didn't connect this. Is when I was a kid, I was taken to this farm, and they always monitored my blood. And it's on file. There's an FBI raid. We get calls. There was 3 machines. They were frequency machines. Now, how I never tied this in together is, I don't know, but my family, my grandma this is just kind of who she was. She's very eccentric with some things. She, high profile person here, but anyway, we'd go there. I remember the testing blood in the farm, and then they put me on these 3 frequency machines. Well, we get a call. I was at my grandma's, get a call like 2, 3 in the morning. And at 11 or 12, 12 years old. My parents, I don't know what's wrong with them. Anyway, my grandma takes me up there. We get the machines out before the FBI even comes and raids it. But they're very important. And it did not even tie any of it together. But here I found out my grandmother is also AB negative. And she saw the first UFO ever. And it was at this farm. But from the farm, it went to these MRIs of my brain. So you can about imagine like I think it's honestly a part of it.
Well, I can have some of our doctors look at your hard copy, and they can give a medical opinion, and I guarantee it's going to verify some things that the bunkers are never going to be able to deal with.
Thank you.
That's interesting. Have any implants or recovery materials, you kind of already answered this to a degree, but ever been independently analyzed by scientists or laboratories?
Funny you should ask. The answer is yes.
Okay.
And the first 2 surgeries we did, I got a phone call within a couple of days, and the guy on the other end of the phone was Bob Bigelow.
Oh, wow.
He said, I'm standing here with 4 people. He said there are 3, all of them got PhDs. One of them's got 2 PhDs and an MD. He said, we'd like to know, he said, how you found this kind of evidence. He said, evidence no one knows exists, and you seem to be able to find a lot of it. Well, you have to understand that's a trap question, and they're trying to get you use your ego to answer so they can find out if you're a fraud or not.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to find physical evidence from an alien phenomena, you need to find, I said, if you want to find solid evidence from an alien phenomena, go find a Native American tracker that's an abductee, which would be me. I didn't tell them that. I said, otherwise, let's go find a cop. I said, if you do that, you'll find donuts.
That's true.
They did not laugh at all. They did not think it was funny. What the thing was, I didn't tell it for a joke. I told it for a fact, because later, Bob Bigelow sent 2 people to one of my abductees' home and to get some physical evidence. And anyway, he got scared. The abductee got scared, called me on the phone and said, there's 2 special agents from the FBI here. And I said, well, good. I said, put them on the phone. I said, who are you? And they told me their names. Well, we're from Bob Bigelow's organization. I said, I told him never to send cops. They're always going to get donuts. Well, we can't find any of the biological evidence in his case here. I said, why do you think that is? Well, because you got all of it. And I said, I guess I did a really good job, huh? Well, we need to get that. I said, that's never going to happen, buddy. That's first of all, I said, what are you doing on my abductees at his home, intimidating him? I said, you may be a big shot because you think you're ex-special agents. I said, I'm ex-CIA. You know what that means to me? Nothing. All my exes live in Texas. And you're an ex. You ain't nothing. You're ex-FBI. You're not FBI anymore. You're not. You're just working for Bob Bigelow, and he's pulling your chain. Yeah. He said, well, he's going to come down and take you to dinner. I said, he can come down here and take me to dinner anytime he wants to, but he's not going to be leaving with that biology. Not going to happen.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's what he did do that was good before we parted ways. Is he asked the question. He said, we want you to come up and do a presentation for NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, which I did with one of my doctors. And everyone in the room all wanted to spend the money on me to pick out the implants to be studied, which I did. And the amazing thing was that MUFON and everybody else was there to try to get funding for their projects, and they were all turned down. We were the only one that they all agreed it should be funded that day. So they spent $22,000 to answer your query, $22,000 for the New Mexico State University, New Mexico, not university, NMSU, New Mexico State University, and Los Alamos, both to look at my implants. They did a $22,000 study, constructed a special microscope with a tube on it that they put the implant in. They fired a laser at it, captured the gas that came off the implant, and then they analyzed that alone. That's just one of many tests they did. The point is that the implants turned out to be extraterrestrial. Obviously, they turned out to be from a rare meteorite, extremely rare. And they want to know where in the world I got it, which I wouldn't tell them anything.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that I told Bob, he said, you don't seem excited that we're doing all this study for you. And I said, no, I'm really not. And he says, why not? And I said, well, you guys, all you really want to know is, are these things extraterrestrial or not?
Yeah.
That's it. Otherwise, you think it's from a spatter effect from a Vietnam wound or something like that. And I said, that's what you think.
Yeah.
He said, well, what do you think we ought to do? I said, well, the first thing I ought to do, and while it's in the lab, is do isotopic ratio studies. Why do you want to do that? I said, Bob, an isotopic ratio of anything, like the meteorite they found in Antarctica, they said it came from Mars. How do we know that? Because when we went to Mars with our little lander, it took a scoop of the soil there and sent back analysis of that meteoric material on Mars, and it exactly matched the one we found in Antarctica. I said, my point is the isotopic ratios properly used, I said, will give you the phone number wherever those materials came from.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to know where they came from? It's incredible. They got in the human body, wrapped in the person's own skin, and that produced a biological effect that absolutely is stunning. In fact, a Nobel laureate told me, he said, Mr. Sims, you may have a Nobel laureate find right now, just from the biology. I said, I can't get people interested in the biology. They're wanting to know if the material is extraterrestrial. Is it alien? If it's not extraterrestrial, it's not an alien. I said, you don't know the first thing about the alien. You don't know anything about them. You think you do because you read stuff, because you hear people tell stories. I said, the fact is that the biology is more important. The alien uses our biology more than any other thing that you'll ever find in anybody. What do you mean? I said, they abduct you, the biological person, the things they do to you mentally and everything. It's all part of your nature or your biology. I said, you're missing the whole barn by 15 yards. You're looking for an object, nuts and bolts or whatever it is you're looking for. You're missing the fact. Why is the caudate oversized? Nobody's asked the question. Yeah. Well, so these people have had unusual experiences. You're missing the whole point. What is it that happened to them that caused that to occur?
Yeah. What do you think is the main reason then for the implant being put into the human? Is it track us or
no?
No.
No. Stanton Friedman and I were on a radio program one day, and he said, the guy asked me questions about, essence, a lot of questions. He said, well, what about these implants, Stanton? What do you think? And he says, oh, I have no idea. He said, Derrel's the one removing them. So why don't you ask him? Is one of these tracking devices or transponders? I said, no, they're not either one. Well, Mr. Sims, how do you know that? And I said, well, at this possibility of sounding rude, I'll just go ahead and answer you bluntly. I said, if you've got an implant in you, that's placed in you, you realize. They said, we agreed. I said, okay. How did they find you to put the implant in?
Yeah.
I said, you're missing the boat by 15 yards.
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong questions to the right person. It's not a tracking device. They already know where you're at.
Yeah.
They've known where you're at. They know where your genetics are at. They know that. They don't care about that. You care about that, and you think that's the reason. It's a red herring, and you're supposed to chase that because it doesn't mean anything to them. It does to you.
Interesting. I remember watching, I think it was an old episode of a TV show with Bill Burns called UFO Hunters. And I think it was the late Dr. Roger Lear. And he had one of these implants. And when the surgeon seemed to go in on the X-ray, it showed this object being evasive and trying to move away from the surgeon's scalpel and the tweezers that, had made the incision. Like,
I've heard that story, and I would love to see the film. The reason is because, well, first of all, Lear I was his mentor.
Yeah,
he was a podiatrist, a foot doctor. He's not allowed to do any surgery above the ankle.
Yeah.
So everybody says he removed all his implants. No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
They recruited him from a MUFON meeting even.
Thank you.
Really?
They picked up, anytime we needed a doctor, we just hired him to do it. Now he would place himself in front of the camera so the camera would think, everybody on the film was thinking he's doing it with the doctor. He didn't remove anything from anybody except the first implant from that lady from her foot.
Yeah.
And even then he pretty much butchered her foot. The doctor that was in attendance, his friend, said, "You're traumatizing the wound, Roger." Made Roger really angry.
Yeah.
He was not that good of a foot surgeon, in my opinion. Number one, because I watched him do foot surgeries on other people that were not abductees. Yeah. And he did some pretty sloppy work. And to prove that, he got sued later by a man who lost the end of his foot, who was one of his patients. And the state of California came after Roger and fined him $4,000 and 3 years probation. He couldn't even work on feet. That's a matter of it's a matter of record. It's not an accusation. Yeah. It's a matter of record. You can look it up and find it.
Okay. So
that's the reason I fired him.
Ah, right. I didn't know that. That wasn't privy to
we
me.
didn't tell anybody stuff like that back
40
years ago because we didn't want there's enough bad information out there, and I did not want a scandal like that in the UFO community. But it's just
how many? Just awful. He was it's so crazy. He was a podiatrist, a foot doctor. I mean, it's just like, come on. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just.
I later got a cardiovascular surgeon to help me, and he asked me the question, "Why are you still hanging out with that guy?"
It's not bad.
This one doctor I talked to said he's front page and centerfold in the medical journals as a nutcase.
Yeah,
his words, not mine.
Yeah,
I said I've already gotten rid of him. I fired him.
Do any of these implants ever give off a frequency once they're removed, or is the frequency cut once removed from the biologic?
Well, that's okay. We deal in facts.
Yeah.
The first time when the first surgery, Roger pulls out this little tiny box. It's called a Gauss meter. It costs about $10 or $20. He says, "Listen to the thing, zing!" It's zinging. Oh my God, the implant's giving off this tremendous signal. It didn't. That's Roger. We're inside a building that's got tons of metal, and the walls are full of wiring and everything else. And I said, "Your equipment, and we got here, we're using. It's all metallic. It's picking up that." "No, it's the implant." I said, "How do you know that?"
Yeah.
Anyway, he told that story forever. We never found that to be true. we have found people who had a signal in them that did have an implant.
Right.
When the implant got removed by a different doctor, not Lear or me, it didn't give off a signal after that. So if they are giving off signals, it's like it's again connected to the body.
Yeah.
The biology is the key, not the implant.
Yeah.
The biology.
Yeah.
What exactly about the biology are they so fascinated by?
Well, I thank you for asking that question. It just so happens I have the answers right here. I'll describe it with a little bit of medical ease. First of all, concerning the implants, I did a presentation before I ever met Roger Lear or anybody. The John Muir Medical Hospital, very famous hospital in San Francisco, invited me to do a medical presentation, a continuing education program for 250 doctors and surgeons concerning medical complications of alleged human-alien contact, implants. And I did. That was a year before we ever did any surgeries. And I told everybody that after I showed all these x-rays and everything, I said, I want to make some predictions. When we do these surgeries, here's what's going to happen. I said, the reason I'm telling you this in advance is many of you are very, very, very skeptical, and that's okay, of this implant stuff. It's fake in your opinion, or blown up, or just simply bull. I said, the reason I'm telling you these predictions is when we do the first surgeries, if this is not true, you'll know that I am mistaken or a liar or whatever it is you want to call me. Well, they like this. I said, okay, number one, if these objects that we remove are alien in origin, there will be no chronic or acute inflammatory cells present around the object. They said, well, that's not going to be true, because anytime you get a splinter in anything, there's an inflammatory process, acute or chronic if it's a long time. I said, there won't be any there. Some of these objects have been in these people 30 years. There will be no chronic or acute inflammatory cells present around the object. That's number one. Number two, there'll be nerve cells present that are inappropriate to the affected area. They didn't buy that either. I said, the object will be absent of discernible technology. They thought that was weird. And I said, the metallic, plastic, or ceramic implants that we have are understudy or passe and from 5 to 50 years old and out of date already. So now let me give you the medical aspect of that. The biology, when it was removed, the next morning, we took the biology to a pathologist, and I said, what do you make of that glob of material around this object? He said, well, it's an inflammatory process. It's been there for a long time. It's an acute process, inflammatory cells. And I said, obviously, you're 100% right. And I knew he was wrong. Yeah. That's what I would like for you to do is show me, the uneducated person who doesn't have a clue, look at those cells specifically under the microscope and tell me what they are in your learned opinion. He looks at them and says, sure. Oh my God. These are non-inflammatory cells. Those are supposed to be inflammatory. I said, we'd think so. Well, what is it? And he said, that the biology surrounding the metal, that's it's keratin. I said, what is keratin? He said, keratin's your fingernails, your surface skin, or your hair. I said, in other words, on the outside of the body. He said, yes. I said, well, what if these were found on the inside of the body? In other words, the metal was wrapped in this sheath, membranous casing. That didn't happen. There is no non-inflammatory cells deep inside the body that's made out of keratin. He said, there is none. There aren't any. And I said, okay. So we left. And of course, I said, well, there were 17 witnesses, 2 doctors, an attorney, and 17 witnesses, and we got it on film. He said, I don't care if God was present. That didn't happen. So what was the biology? Biology is a proteinaceous coagulum. Hemosiderin and keratin were present. The keratin is the main biology, but the stuff that's in it that makes the implant work, so to speak, is a proteinaceous coagulum. These products are normally found in the tissue on the surface of the skin, like the tissue I told you about. Nerve cells have been found that are present that were inappropriate to the affected site of the surrounding tissue. That was a big one. Remember those stats that I gave you to the doctor?
Yeah.
This is what we found in the first surgery. Nerve proprioceptors found in the area are present in large numbers. These are buried within the object in deep layers of the skin. The small nerves are usually found in the fingertips or soles of the feet, and there they are, giving information about muscle movements. But now they're deep inside the body next to this object. Now, the helpful pathologists and others explain later, proteinaceous coagulum, this is a blood clot made up of pure protein since the sample had been in the body for approximately 40 years. Rather than a recent injury, the pathologist was unable to comment further as why it was there present. Hemosiderin, this is a tissue stained by metallic deposits. My thinking is the staining occurred from the small piece of meteorite which is found within the cocoon. It could possibly explain the fluorescent qualities present on the exterior of the biology. Anyway, long story short is that this implant was bizarre, to say the very least, in this woman. And the only thing wrong that Lear said about it that I didn't like, because he couldn't prove it at all and never did prove it, is that it had a high zinging noise to it. I said, Roger, that is a Gauss meter. I said, you can take it into any room and turn it on anywhere near anything and it'll zing.
Yeah.
Oh, but we got an implant here. I said, you're making it up. I said, if those qualities are present, we'll find it in our testing in an appropriate laboratory, not in a doctor's office full of electronic equipment, overhead lights.
Yeah. Interesting.
He told that story till he died.
Yeah.
He just said that's one of the reasons I fired him. He's just telling stories that simply weren't true.
In some of these implants, I know you mentioned about isotopic ratios, and I know some of these that anomalies, shall we say, have been studied, and they're saying that the actual layering, one of the common elements is usually bismuth, I believe.
That's again, these are statements that are made that are not necessarily qualified.
Okay.
We have metallic implants. We have this is bizarre. In one lady, 3 implants in her foot. That's the one with the very strange biology here.
Yeah.
2 of the implants are the best way to describe them is they are obviously meteoric, and they are they're a magnet wood. They join as soon as they were pulled apart in the biology, they clicked together instantly. They were magnetic.
Yeah.
The third one wasn't.
Oh.
Is that bizarre? It had a high level of carbon in it, but it was not magnetic. So you see what I'm saying? When people make all kinds of statements, well, it was this, it was that.
Yeah.
There were 11 different elements found on the surface of these implants that were absolutely stunning. Because when the Los Alamos and one did one group, the NMSU did and Los Alamos, those 2 different laboratories did 2 different types of testing on these objects. And what they found after this $22,000 study was these elements that were found by this special microscope they constructed just to look at these implants. The elements they found there they couldn't figure it out. They said these elements cannot be on a meteorite.
Yeah.
How did they get on the meteorite? Well, of course, they didn't know they were inside a human body in a proteinaceous coagulum surrounded by a biological. I'll give you a hint. You ever heard of the scoop mark?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the skin came from around the implant? What is this kind of skin?
Oh God.
What is the skin called? It's called it's your dermis, of course, but
Dermis, yeah.
But what did the doctor say it couldn't be? The thing next to the body. The implant, as a scientist said, this is keratin, nails, surface skin. This is where the keratin came from. It's a scoop mark.
Huh.
Wow.
Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that.
Wow.
You just found it out.
Wow.
I've had them too. That is cringeworthy. God.
That's it.
Oh, and you know what? And I think I was delusional because in my head, but everybody I talked to, and including somebody asked a question about somebody in the community, it was all you had to have this positive, nobody questioned it. It was like this great, exciting. And I know like UFOs and ET, they don't go hand in hand, not for me anyway.
No.
But the whole thing of it is like, and then I'm like, Derrel had a great point. You said one time about people and they were abducted and then they were dropped off a block away. And you're like, it's not because ET made a mistake because they're that smart. They would remember where they put them. He said it's because they have a low IQ and they're that stupid. You also said that the people don't come and take you in the middle of the night or take you and don't ask you if they're such great people. They would maybe let you know what's going on. And you're right about that's a valid point about that. But it is, you get into that trap. But there's some people in this community. It's like as soon as you go and you're like, hey, let's look at a different angle on this. I get emails. I insulted them. I'm like, what are you I don't know, the complaint committee of ET now? Like you think that you're, it's like you're training man. Now I remember you on my show 2 years ago, and now you're a full-fledged ET trainer. I was like, give me a freaking break. And whoever he is now an experiencer, and he didn't even start off an experiencer. What are you doing? Why would you even want to do that?
You're right on target. Let me give you one quick example. A UFO group asked me, and it's a MUFON group, and I love MUFON. We've got a lot of friends at MUFON. They asked me to do a presentation, a live presentation, PowerPoint, between them and their top investigators in this particular state. And I said, be glad to. And I did. And a doctor was present there as well, an MD. And she argued with me quite a bit. And at the end of the presentation, the leader of that organization called me, and she sent it on email as well, which I like because I love to have stuff like that in writing. She said, Derrel, 90% of the stuff you told us, we had no clue of it. And we've been studying this stuff all our lives. I said, the problem is you're reading information and you're interviewing people, but I said, I'm going to say this as gently as I can. If a bunch of us UFO people walked up to a good cop, a good detective, and told him our methods, he'd laugh in your face. You're not an investigator at that level. Sometimes you get engineers that are they're better investigators, generally speaking, but not the point. And I've had people challenge me, even in conferences, like one lady on the six reasons they pick you up. Dr. Carla Turner and her husband Elton were there, sitting there, watching the presentation, and this lady stood up in the conference and she said, "Liar! You don't know what you're talking about. You're making this all up. You're a liar. Prove it." And I said, "Okay." I said, well, I don't want to. I said, it's hard for me to prove that because I'm giving you the statistics here. All my abductees are not here. So, well, tell me about yourself. I said, that is going to make me look like I'm bragging or something. I said, that doesn't help my case at all. Should just do it. And I said, okay. I said, I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in the martial arts. So what? A lot of people are black belts in martial arts. So what, buddy? And I said, that's true. But this is not Taekwondo where you can order your belt in advance. I said, you know anything about Kyokushinkai karate? She said, what's that? And I said, you know anything about a guy named Masayama? He's the guy in Japan that killed full-grown bulls weighing over 1,200 pounds with a single punch.
Wow.
That's my mentor. I said, now, the reason my case of having a 3rd-degree black belt is important is because I never passed the basic. I never had a teacher. I said, go anywhere and try to get a 3rd-degree black belt. It'll never happen. Yeah. You can't do it. You have to be taught. I said, now I'm a 4th-degree black belt. I still have never had a teacher yet. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. And you're going to make me out like I'm a braggart and everything. She said, well, I am. And she started cranking up again. I said, you know, one of the things about me is that I'm not like a lot of UFO people. I don't mind the challenge. I said, so I'm going to challenge you. I said, I walked over fire at Tony Robbins' thing and another one. She said, a lot of people have done that. And I said, I understand. You're not listening. Every time you open your mouth, you're making huge mistakes. Yeah. Let me show you why. I said, I taught myself how to walk over fire when I was 14. Tony Robbins was in diapers when I was 14. I said, now, I can walk and run over broken glass and have done that for university presentations since 1967. I said, I can transfer my ability to you. Do you want to play? She sat down, never said another word. Carla Turner laughed her head off. She said, well, about time somebody set her down. I said, they just need a good little encouragement. That's all. We'll build a fire out here. I'll get a bunch of broken glass. We'll run you across at 80 miles an hour. See how well you do.
Oh my God.
Lesson learned, right?
Yeah. No, she won't be doing that again.
Nope.
Well, the key to doing that broken glass thing, you got to drink all the alcohol first, and then you do it. I made that up. Actually, I don't drink it all. I do drink milk, which I've got some here, but that's all I drink.
I don't react very well to it. So do you think that these type of like, I don't know, weird things like I affect electricity, or I have do you think that applies to people who have been taken like that? Or
well, it could
because we were taken, or I don't know.
It could. What we have found with one of our nurse abductees here at a major hospital right here in Houston, they won't let her on computers at all. They blow up when she gets around them. I don't know why. I wish I knew the answer to that, but they won't let her around. But there are all kinds of physical things that happen to abductees or around abductees that they don't know. A lot of people say, well, lights go out above, headlamps go out above me on street lamps.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that may not have anything to do with you. Oh, it does. It does for a fact. I said, you don't know that. I said, it happens and you see it. You make the correlation. Oh, that had to be me. I'm special, I'm unique, or whatever. I said, what if it's a UFO beaming toward you or another abductee, and maybe it's some other house, and the light gets in the way and it turns it off? I said, it could be you, or it may not. I said, my point is, we just throw things out there and assume that this is it. This is
you got to test
all of it. You know, you have to. Why don't all the lights go out when you walk underneath them? Why don't the ones in your house go out?
And there's only certain ones that used to affect, like the ones when they updated the street lights, I can't do it anymore. But Paul Shishi, who's in chat, he's from Canada. We have the same birthday, 20 years apart. He can take out lights like in the factory, and he's done it. And a bunch of people have been around. So for whatever reason, but we ended up having the same birthday 20 years apart. And he like involves it too. I remember my dad taking us around in the car, and he's like, it has to be the way the headlights are beaming at it. It has to be. And I'm like, I thought it was maybe the MRIs, to be quite honest, but
we don't know. Well, MRI is not going to give off that kind of a signal. But
I wanted to think that,
a signal that far would be unbelievable. It could be detected by all kinds of stuff. You'd never get on an airplane if that were the case. But anyway, and I do have an abductee who they strip her down, literally alone. The women do strip her down, because she can't walk through that machine without setting it off. They make her take her bra off, her panties, everything, and walks through it, and it still sets it off. And it's not due to a previous surgery that I can prove yet. But that again, that's unusual, and there are people that happens to. There are.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it's like a signal, like a beacon, because I have that thing, and it's like these frequency machines and MRIs. Like I almost feel like it's like I'm a beacon for something. I don't like it. I do not like the feeling of it.
It may be. I don't know. You have to examine each person and test them. But you just really don't know until you look at each person and check them. You really don't know. Are
there any tests that you can do? Like, I don't know, like an EMF meter or like anything? Because I know you had said last time, black light, especially within 2 days, if you think you have been taken, use a black light on your body.
You should, and you should wash to see if you can get the fluorescence off, because if you can, it's not alien in the vast majority of cases. We had one lady that she was in one of my workshops. Her hand glowed. It had brilliant fluorescence all over it. She said, "Oh my God, it's me! I'm an abductee." And I said, "Wait! Stop the bus!" I said, "Don't." She had everybody excited in the room, and I said, "I'm looking at your age," and I said, "I'm not insulting you. I'm asking a question. Do you play bingo?" She said, "Yes." I said, "What was the color of the magic marker that you used last night?" She's, "Oh, the same color as that." I said, "Go wash it off." She came back, it was gone. I said, "It's not alien."
Oh God.
There
are those, yeah.
She didn't like that. She didn't like it. Well, I pay for this workshop now, and I'm not even doing an abductee. I said, "I don't know where you are, where you're not." I said, some people out there get taken and they don't even know it. They have no clue.
What is the telltale sign, though, in someone who doesn't know they've necessarily been taken? What's the tipping point? Yeah.
Okay, a friend of mine in Austin, Texas, a dear friend of mine, she said, "I've got this friend that she will not drive herself to work." Why? I said, "Because she has to go by the certain street." I said, "Okay, what happened?" She said she doesn't know. It doesn't matter. If her best friend can't take her to work at the same place she works, if she's sick that day, she'll be sick that day. She will not drive herself by there. I said, because something has happened traumatic to her at that location. That's a hint. May not be alien, but it probably is. And that's something happened there traumatic.
Yeah. Something that's present in the subconscious, I'm guessing.
She's not gonna give it up.
No, it's interesting. I always go back to the case of Betty and Barney Hill and the stuff they, sort of recounted. It's just, I find it so, I don't know, enthralling, but also sort of, it's scary as well.
Yeah, sure. That's true.
The level of detail these people, abductees, let's call them that, can sort of recount. And I think, the case with Betty and Barney Hill, didn't Betty sort of map out a star system that didn't exist? which
that's there's a lot of argument about that. I wouldn't argue one way or the other because I don't know.
Yeah.
But we had a case like Betty Hill's case, where a nurse got abducted before the Betty and Barney Hill case. And like I said, a lot of our stuff we just don't publish because we don't need to. It don't have to.
Yeah.
Everybody's publishing theirs. Why do we need to do ours? But in her case, she was, her and her husband had decided while she was a nurse, they were not going to have children when they first got married. Right. And she said, and I said, she was at this UFO conference asking me, she said, years ago, this when this happened. And I said, okay, well, what happened? She said, well, I went to a hypnotist and it's like there's a block there. You know, they can't get past it. I said, well, those are put there on purpose. I said, in rare cases, I've found some abductees that had as many as 3 blocks. You get past one, there's another one. And if there's a reason, now you either saw, heard, or experienced something you're not supposed to remember.
Yeah.
And they don't want it out. She says, well, can you help me? And I said, yeah, I'm going to eat dinner with Bud Hopkins here. And fill this out. I come back. You're here when I get back. I'll work with you. She came back and she was there. I said, oh, my God. It was like midnight when I got back. So my flight's about 6 a.m. So I said, okay, let's. So I worked with her and what I found, I got past her first block and all that. And she freaked completely out. Oh, my God. The 2 little guys in the room put that bendable needle in my navel. And then when they pulled it out, it left semen all over my stomach.
Ooh.
But I didn't remember that. All I remembered in the event was I woke up with semen all over my stomach. I told my husband we weren't going to have children for the first year until I quit my. And I said, and what happened? She said, well, I woke up. He was sound asleep. I started slapping him. And I said, you beat your husband because of that? And she said, well, he had to do it. He was the only one there. And I didn't want to tell her what had happened. I said, okay. I said, well, what happened? She said, well, I got pregnant. What do you think? And she doesn't know anything about the UFO field at all. So I didn't want to alert her to anything. I said, well, in your pregnancy, did the fetus come up missing in the first trimester? Of course not. Why will you keep saying stuff like that? I said, well, why don't you just tell me? Why don't I? Just be quiet. And I said, yes, ma'am, I will. Should have had a baby just like I was supposed to. I said, oh, my. Any chance I could interview the child? He's a young adult now, about 19 years old. And I said, I would love to interview him. And she said he would do that. And I said, well, here's what happened. The 2 shadows you saw in your room were real, and they did artificially inseminate you. And she said, oh my God, my husband didn't do that. I said, no, ma'am. She said, I divorced my husband over this phenomena. Oh my God. And anyway, it was a case like Betty and Barney Hill before Betty and Barney Hill stuff. But I've got cases like that absolutely would scare your audience of artificial insemination that happen in hospitals under hospital supervision, and the alien did it.
Jeez. I know we were talking obviously off air before this started about animal mutilation cases, and you mentioned that there were 4 different stages or groupings to mutilation cases.
That's true. A 5 Alabama cop was questioning me about that in San Francisco in 1994, I think it was. Yeah. And he said, I want to know about cattle mutilations. And I said, well, you're the expert. I'm not. And anyway, I couldn't convince him that I didn't know anything. So after he pushed my buttons as much as he could, I said, in my opinion, you have 4 different kinds of mutilations. He said, tell me about them. I said, the first ones, they did it. I pointed upward. He says, who's they? I said, the alien. He said, well, I don't believe in that, so I don't care. I don't care what you believe. The second one goes this way. We do them. He said, who's we? I said, the intelligence community, of course. As the third group are people who feel special, chosen, unique, special, and that the alien, if they just knew who they were, just abduct me, then you would see that I am obviously one of the ones that's chosen. That I get it. I understand. We would get along perfectly. I said, you'll end up on the slab like everybody else. I said, those people will mutilate an animal to hope that the aliens will see that and want to know who did it and come back and get them. That's not going to happen. Yeah. The last group of people are just mean people who are cultists or just evil people who cut up animals and they hurt them. And I said, the good point about all of this is if you know what you're doing, you can look at an animal mutilation and figure out which level of those four did it. But you have to know what you're doing medically and surgically. I said, number one. I said, number two, I said, I suspect your cattle have got fluorescence on them. He looked at me and said, who told you that? That's a secret. We never told anybody that. I said, I used to be a cop. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. I said, I can figure things out. I said, that's okay. Our cattle have got fluorescence on them too. He said, are you saying abductees have got fluorescence on them? I said, yes. Different colors? I said, yes. Is there a meaning to the pattern? I said, yes. Oh my God. Do you have any idea what it means? I said, yes. Oh my God. That's incredible. I said, it's not the same thing as the cattle. I said, the cattle have been pre-marked by either you or by the intelligence community or the alien. I said, and that will be markedly different. You'll be able to tell the difference in the fluorescence. He said, what color fluorescence? I told him. He said, where did you find that out? I said, it doesn't matter. I said, I'm not stupid. I can figure the stuff out. Yeah. I said, the alien fluorescence will be different than that. That's
Are they the real green, like the old school fluorescence? That's what I saw on them.
Well, that is one fluorescence you'll often see with the gray when they touch you. Mm-hmm. But there's other fluorescence colors that mean different things, and it depends on where it's at, and how it got on you.
That's interesting.
So that's crazy. Are there, obviously, many different animals, species exist on this earth. Are there any sort of patterns to what type of animals maybe more so are being taken than another, or?
Yeah, well, people only are concerned with cattle and people. The reason is because cattle cost a lot of money. Yeah. So if your $2,000 cow gets mutilated out in the field, you want the insurance out there, and you want everybody involved. You want the police there. You want to find out what happened to my cow. Yeah. So that's a big deal. However, if 7 rats are mutilated on your driveway and laid out with all the heads severed in a row, that doesn't mean a whole lot to most abductees. No, they don't know enough about mutilations to make the correlation. That happened in England, and actually in Scotland, in the Bournemouth area. But there are other kinds. There are all kinds of mutilations. I've got 2 children that were pretty badly damaged from their abduction experiences, and their mother was in the other room hearing them scream as they were being tortured. Jesus. And wow. Later the 2 children were found drowned in a swimming pool that they could not get into normally because these are tiny children. Oh my goodness. They were dropped off in the wrong location. Just like Coley said, they're stupid. They were in a wading pool, a little tiny wading pool for little kids on the front lawn, but they were dropped off in the neighbor's swimming pool. It had a big fence around it. You couldn't even get to it.
Oh, that's crazy.
I have the autopsy reports. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. How much of this do you think links in with, obviously he's put a few books out and a couple of documentaries, but the David Palaudi stuff, the Missing 411?
Well, I know David very well. And I told him the last time I talked to him, I said, I'm really good at what I do, David. I said, some of these people, not everybody that disappears stays gone forever. Some of them come back.
Yeah.
They don't know what happened to them. I said, I'm pretty good at memory recovery. I said, if you would like, I will take the cases that you have that showed up and I'll work with them, and then we'll write a paper together on it, that sort of thing. I said, but I think I already know what's happening to them, but I won't say that until we find evidence for it. And he said he liked the idea, but he never did call me back. I contacted him twice, and that was my last offer. So I'll find my own missing people, and I'll find it out myself. But since then, he told everybody in the world that all these people are missing from UFO events.
Yeah.
I guess he thought I was going to tell everybody that. I don't tell people stuff unless I have good evidence that it's true.
Yeah. Do you think there's any correlation between this rule, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that certain national state parks you shouldn't be in after sundown?
The missing person syndrome occurs in certain places. Their parks are only one. There are several other things that are systemic to these people being taken. Some of them seem to have an intelligence connection to me, and others clearly have a UFO smell about them, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I really won't know until I check with some of these missing people that showed up later.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the mutilations, this one, I told you, the Fife, Alabama cop, he and I got to arguing. He said, "Well, I think it's all the military." I said, "Don't piss on the military." I said, "I'm ex-military. Don't throw me in a pile of weirdos like that." I said, "I would have never done this to anybody." And I said,
"Thank you for your service."
Thank you. It doesn't mean that there aren't people that would. There are people that would. I get that. I said, my point to you is that the ones, he said, I think all of it's done by the military or the intelligence community, as you say. And I said, well, you're wrong. He said, you got a case, prove it. I said, don't make me embarrass you in front of God and everybody. He said, you got a case, make it. And I said, okay. I said, a case, I know of a case where tons of meat fell out of the air. Tons of meat. Cattle, different animals, and humans. The humans were particularly interesting because the doctor who examined them said the heart, the lungs, and everything were sliced like by a machine.
Wow.
Well, that still doesn't mean the CIA didn't do it. I said it was in 1880. CIA didn't even start till 1947.
Yeah, after Roswell, right?
That's what I told you, not to challenge me.
Yeah.
Now you look stupid.
That's crazy. Is it with the animals, and obviously you've just touched upon the human subject, is it anything connected to the central nervous system, or is it more than that?
I'll give you a big hint here. Save you a lot of time. They know more about you than you know about you.
Right.
They're not interested in, how shall I say this? People always bring this up at conferences. Well, Derrel, don't you think they're studying our biology or whatever? I said, if you've been here for 200 years with the finest tech there is, and you still don't know anything about humans, you're dumber than a bag of hammers. You can put me on a planet with an alien race and give me 6 good biologists, scientists for DNA studies. We'll know more about that entire population in a week.
Yeah.
I said, it's a red herring. They want you looking at that because that's not what they're looking at.
Right.
I said, there's an old scripture in the Bible, an ancient text in the book of Proverbs. It says, you are created wonderfully.
Yes.
The problem is the only person that doesn't know that is us.
Yeah.
We're still thinking, well, we're just barely pond scum, barely crawled out of the primordial ooze. We're just really pretty low in the food chain, and aliens are a million light years ahead of us. They're not.
Yeah.
They're 15 to 50 years ahead of you.
Yeah.
Listen carefully to what I said.
Wow.
15 to 50 years ahead. That's all.
That's
Why don't I know that? Because you
Yeah.
don't study the alien. You're reading books about them. You have to actually study. Now, a person who came to me one time was Dr. Bob Wood, one of the most famous people in the UFO community, brilliant man. And he asked me this privately on a TV shoot. He said, Derrel, I want to talk to you privately. How far do you think the alien is ahead of us? And I said, I'd get laughed clean off the set if they heard it. He said, I don't care what they think. I care what you think. And unfortunately, they were coming back at that time after drinking a Coke. And I said, the alien's no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of us. And everybody there on that set, everybody laughed me to scorn.
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing except for 2 people, me and Dr. Bob Wood.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob Wood looked at me and said something, and everybody shut up. He said, those are the exact figures that I came to. And I'm the one that has the back engineered proof of back engineering on these craft. And I said, yes, you are. He said, Derrel, they're no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of us. I said, I know that.
Wow.
Now there's 2 of us that know it.
Yeah.
And he later wrote me and said, how did you figure that out? I read out, and I wanted him to write me because I wanted that in his hand. I wanted it in his email. And Dr. Bob Wood wrote me, and I said, I'll tell you how I figured it out. When I was 16 years old, I said, 12 years old, I said, I did a nasal implant on me. That's how I discovered implants. I said, then when I went to college in 1966, 67, I said, at New Mexico State University, I said, I started studying what they were doing to me. Because remember, I overheard what they were saying, not what they told me. They told me it won't hurt. It did. I don't care what they tell me. It did. But I heard what they were going to do, the entire procedure. I heard the whole thing.
Oh my God.
I went and studied that in college and found out that they're no more than 15 to 50 years ahead of us.
Huh. That's
Why is it we don't know? Why do we think they're light years ahead of us? Like one lady told me, Derrel, you just don't understand. I said, well, why don't you enlighten me then? She said, Derrel, they have craft that travel at the speed of light or whatever. I said, first of all, you don't know that. You think that's the case. You don't know that. They come from Zeta Reticuli. I said, you don't know that either.
Yeah.
You think that because they told somebody that. So you think it's them. I said, listen to me carefully. I said, I'm a former police officer and still a private investigator in the state of Texas. When I walk into that court, I can't walk in with, I think, I believe, I feel in my heart, in my gut, I know it's true. They'll throw you out the front door of that court. You can't walk in accusing somebody of murder. Well, I think he did it. He looked like a criminal. You can't do that. You'll never make it in the court. So I told this lady, I said, look, you would agree with me that a lot of these guys only have 3 fingers. She said, yeah. I said, what can you build with three fingers and no opposing thumb?
Not much.
Go out and try to build anything with 3 fingers, and that's all. You're not going anywhere. I said, what I'm trying to tell you, sweetie, somebody else built the craft for them. Any monkey could run that thing. That's stuff you don't know.
Yeah.
Don't try to educate me on how smart the alien is. You don't know the IQ of these different entities. I can sit here and tell you what it is.
Yeah.
You don't know, but I do. I said, and I'm not the only person that knows that, but there are very few people that do, because they've been looking at other kinds of evidence you haven't been looking at. And that's the point. I said, so bottom line, I said, if I go out and dig up a Cro-Magnon cave dweller out of the permafrost, let's suppose we can thaw him out without the salt in his blood crystallizing.
Right.
That's what kills you. I said, if we thaw him out, now you can do that with turtles and with certain frogs, and they don't die. You can thaw them and they'll live.
Yeah.
But you do it with mammals, they die.
Yeah.
Period. I said, let's say we can figure out how to thaw him out without him dying. Then I take him to my house, and I want to have a lot of fun. We get to my house, and he looks, he said, it literally is a man cave. Oh, how did you do that? How did you build it? How did you do it? Bricks and what are those? Those are called bricks, dummy. And because he's like 10,000 years behind us or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, I want to have some fun with him. I flipped the light switch. What kind of an IQ does it take to flip the light switch? Any moron could do it. I turned on the light, and all of a sudden there's a sun in the middle of my room. Oh, son, how did you do that? He thinks I'm a genius now because I can flip a light switch. He doesn't even know what it is. When you get on the crap, what do you think happens to you? What do you think happens to you on that crap with somebody that's got an IQ of 80? That's called a moron. It is. It's a moron's IQ. Yeah. And he can flip the light switch. He can make panels open. He can do all kinds of stuff because he's been shown what to do. I said, now I want to have a lot of fun with this caveman. And I turn on the TV, which mine's kind of old. He don't know that. I turned on and I push in my VCR, which is ancient. And I put in an old movie called 1 Million BC. And I push it in and he says, oh, what is that? And I said, it's a time machine. You see those guys throwing those spears at that mammoth? He said, yeah, well, that's you over there. I point at it. He doesn't know it's not him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember me killing that thing. That's pretty weird. I said, yeah, it's pretty cool. My point is, he thinks it's a time machine because he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
If an alien takes you on board a craft and points at different things or photoshops you into an image, and he says, here you are on Zed Reticuli looking at all these amazing glass buildings that we have. I've got news for you. The bulk of these alien, so-called the 7 flavors of alien we're talking about, they live on a craft. Huge craft. Huge. Hundreds of miles. They don't need a planet because they don't need anything on a planet. When they come here, do you find them out where they're hunting guns and spears, fishing and things like that? No. Yeah. Why don't they come here? The only thing you ever see them do is mutilate cattle and take all the blood.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, now that you've explained that makes perfect sense. But so some of the, and I know we spoke off camera, and you were saying about some of these bodies that have been found, animal and human, when they've been found, they've been carbonized. Now, I know obviously we're a carbon life form as such, but can you elaborate upon that? I think you said they. I
can give you a general, we've only found this in one case, and the rancher is a huge ranch, and he went off to shop for the ranch to get groceries and supplies. It's in another country, and he came back. And he had his worker there. He had several cattle and chickens, and of course, the farmers' workers there taking care of everything, making sure nothing gets stolen. And he's got a dog. When the rancher came back with his supplies, it had rained, and he found his cattle, several of his cows, dead, but turned into glass. That's so crazy. And then he found
Wow.
The chickens were dead and turned into glass. Then he was looking for his worker. He kept yelling for him, "Where are you at?" And he knocked on his door, and the door was locked. So he looked through the little window, and he looked in and saw the worker had been carbonized as well.
Oh,
and he
God.
looked in and saw the dog. The dog had been half carbonized. He was still alive.
Oh,
the very first
geez.
thing he did was go to the police. He brought back the police and the military, and believe it or not, the Central Intelligence Agency started showing up. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And they left with all of the evidence, including the bodies, all of them. Wow. That's the only case of carbonization we've ever heard of.
Wow.
And isn't that a thing they do with bodies now instead of cremation? Isn't that like am I understanding that correctly?
No, this is the best way to think of this is you remember the movie Star Wars where the guy was carbonized?
Yeah, Han Solo, wasn't it?
Han Solo was carbonized.
Yeah.
He looked like that.
Yeah.
It's not any process we know anything about.
Do you think that case relates to, I believe there was a case in Russia going back to the Cold War era where some soldiers had seen a UFO and it was stated that they were turned stone, but could it have been?
Stone is different than this. There are some stories of that, and they were allegedly turned into stone. I haven't seen the case, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know this case is real because I have the photography and everything in it.
Wowzers.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So I always ask people who tell me they're here to save the planet, fix the ozone hole, upgrade our DNA and all that. I said, what of his DNA or the cattle's DNA or the chicken's DNA or the poor dog who's still alive? What do you think they were doing for them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's you're making sense to yourself, but not to anyone else.
Yeah. So just, kind of obviously time's getting on, but I was going to ask you, what's one of the biggest misconceptions about people when they obviously are looking into animal or abduction cases or even the human mutilation stuff?
Well, first of all, most of them, like the police is a good example. When they contact me, they're asking me to check it for any weird stuff.
Yeah.
Because when they see a mutilation, they want to know. Number one, you have to understand when the police ask you a question, even if you're an expert or something like that,
yeah,
you're a person of interest.
Yeah,
like,
correct.
How would you know that?
Yeah.
Well, I've looked at all kinds of cattle. Maybe you're the one doing it. Cops do that. That's just a cop's mind working.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things I begged people back in the early 1990s, one friend of mine said, it's when there was a famous case where some government workers, they were actually possibly people here in the country illegally, but they were working for the government, and they were in, I think, in Washington or Oregon State. They were planting some little trees and doing things they were supposed to be doing. And they looked down and they saw this disc about 6 foot across, a small disc, going toward this herd of elk in the valley. And it chased the herd of elk. Of course, the elk all spread, and one of them took off, and it chased the one elk. And then the elk rose magically somehow under the UFO, and the UFO took off with it.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of days later, somebody found a mutilated elk, and they thought, well, maybe this is it. So they took a friend of mine who lived up there. He said, I'm gonna be on this case. And I said, please have them take a special fluorescent light with them to examine before you touch it, before you get near it. Yeah. Check it for this, take soil samples from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 feet out. Take soil samples, do all of that before you touch the cow. And then when you get the cow, check it with a metallic finding device. Why would we do all that? I said, please just do it. They don't do that in cattle mutilations. Please do it. They didn't do any of it.
Jeez.
Wow.
Now we have all those missing answers.
Yeah.
To that case. So what we did in a case up in Oregon, the cattle mutilation, one that I did work, and I gave him some advice on. We took the soil samples from 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 feet out, and then we examined the samples, and the samples showed human pharmaceuticals at different levels out in those ranges. What does that mean? Well, that's a pretty good indication that's the intelligence community.
Yeah.
Well, why would they? What does that mean? Well, it's a helicopter. That's why it's completely around the whole entire body out 100 some feet.
Yeah.
And the pharmaceuticals, they're human pharmaceuticals, but we don't know if the alien put them in there or they did, or that they were gathering them or they put them in there. So somebody would think that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know because we didn't see the case happen. So there are good reasons why you want a real investigator handling that case, not somebody who, I want to help too. No, right. You can't.
Yeah. Probably cause more damage in the longer run.
Well,
right?
I'll give you this is a true story. Bill Burns asked me to come on to the program to be on the show, and I said, only way I would come on that show is I'm the alien hunter. He said, we can't do that. I said, then I won't be there. Anyway, they were doing, the guy had this cow mutilated. They were studying it and all that. He had one of about 30 cattle he had mutilated.
Yeah.
So they thought, we'll spend a night out here and, see if we can find something. Well, they know you're there, dummy.
Yeah.
So they stayed out there and froze themselves to death, decided that's not smart. Well, about 3 weeks later, another cow got mutilated out there. So what that means is you don't know how to hunt the alien. I am the alien hunter.
Yeah.
So anyway, they came out for another cow that got mutilated, and they had a young guy there, real smart kid. And he's there by the cow. It's cold, and the rancher's standing there, and the kid is waiting on them to get off the airplane. He's got to go pick them up. And they call him and said, we're at the airport, come get us. He said, well, I found something here. Said, come get us so we can do this. Shoot. So he put his metal detector down. Now the kid was smart enough. He did wand the whole cow and found something in it, giving up a beeping noise. Beep, 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 beep. And it's moving.
Oh.
Whoa.
He did exactly what his boss said, left the cow there, picked him up, came back to pull out the metal detector, and there's nothing there. Why do I think somebody's dumber than a bag of hammers?
Yeah, go figure, right?
These are friends of mine, but it's not the point. You don't need to be out there. You need somebody out there that knows how the alien thinks, how they move, and what they do, instead of you being on the TV smiling, saying, look at what I did. Yeah. I know what you did. Yeah. Messed the whole case up.
Yeah. I was going to say, you just contaminated the whole scene. Yeah. The whole crime scene is contaminated now. Nothing you do.
In my opinion, it was badly done.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow, gosh.
The last case I'll give you, because I've got to go, but it was a case, in my opinion, and I've not made it public, the most famous mutilation case of all of them. All of them. Horse got mutilated in Chapel Hill, Texas. That's between Hempstead and Houston.
Yeah.
The entire back end of it had been hollowed out. The incredible thing about the case, it's the only case we've ever had, anywhere, ever, that the horse was brought back alive.
Oh God.
What? Say that again. It was brought back to life.
The horse was alive when the owner found it.
Jeez Louise.
Now, remember I told you about abductees hide, destroy, or ignore evidence, right? Did I say that? Yeah. That's an app that's downloaded. She's an abductee. Guess what she did? She calls me and says, my horse got mutilated. Oh my God, oh, Derrel, I'm brokenhearted. I said, okay, I'll be out right away. And she says, oh, it was 2 weeks ago. They've already covered it up with a backhoe.
Oh my gosh.
Why are you telling me this now?
Yeah.
Well, because it's important for you to know. I said 2 weeks ago it would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Did you check it with a blacklight? No. Did you check it with this? Check with that? No. And I said, was that horse still alive when you were there? She said, yes.
Oh, man.
I said, was it kicking or doing anything? She said, no. I said, that's incredible. Horses always do that when they're injured.
Yeah, of course. Jeez.
Wow. Well, Derrel, I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's always wonderful. Yeah. I mean, you always bring you're so honest, authentic, genuine, and you really breathe breath of new air, fresh air into this community, and I appreciate that immensely.
Only my wife thought so.
I second that. You know?
I tell her that all the time. She just laughs at me.
Well, you tell her we love you over here. Yeah, no, I
Same in the UK, buddy. You know, thank you for your service to this community, and also, you know, for
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you.
All about.
Yeah,
it takes all of us. It takes all of us to figure this stuff out. All of us.
It does.
Absolutely.
It can't be a one-man band in this like so many others are. You're not gonna. Nope, it won't work.
Nobody knows all of it. Nobody.
Derrel, just before we leave, for anyone who wants to find out about your work or find out more about what you do, where can they find you?
They can find me under my name. And also, Derrel W. Sims at mac.com is how you can get in touch with me anytime, and I answer all my emails.
Brilliant.
And you can go to thealienhunter.org, thealienhunter.org, and you will find our website. The website is not up to date. It's not real fancy. It's not beautiful and everything, because most of the stuff that's there is stuff I want you to know.
Yeah.
Stuff I don't want you to know is stuff I'm not putting on the site.
Yeah, totally get that.
That's the stuff we have to study very carefully and come to some real hard conclusions about.
Yeah,
absolutely. One more time, will you give them your email address? I did not include that in the description, but I'll add it after.
Yeah, you write it down on the little voice thing out there, the descriptive thing. DERRELWSIMS@mac.com.
So I'm going to put it in the chat so people have it. And if you have anything, sure. Definitely. So got it there. So
every once in a while we have some of your people write us and tell us really interesting things or ask good questions. Glad to hear from them.
Good yes, no, and I'll definitely email you those MRIs and stuff and see what you think.
I would love to see it. Now I'll have our doctors in and out of country look at it. These are all UFO related people. Some of them are abductees and some of them are not.
That's what you need.
They're
you need
very honest people.
Yeah,
they're painfully truthful.
Well, that's all right. The truth I get that. I've been through that. You know, truth is a path. Sometimes you walk alone and sometimes you regret it. But in this case, I think I need to know to move past it.
That's fact.
And then in conclusion, Derrel, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with until the next time?
There's just a little simple, on a higher note than some of the stuff we've been talking about. There's a philosophy I have that I like real well, and it suits me beautifully. It says, the statement that Jesus made. He said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." I don't think that means you have to go out and get shot or killed or be in the military. I don't think that's what he's talking about. It's willing to be willing, that you'll do whatever it takes to do the right thing.
Yes.
And that's an axiom that I'll live by.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. Thank you so much, Derrel, and we'll be in touch soon. Appreciate it. That was amazing. Wow. Jay. I just, isn't he fantastic?
Yeah.
Oh, I just sit afterwards and I think and I process so much of it, because you're not getting, it's like you get one-sided, it's all one-sided kind of information, and he really pulls some balance into all of this. Definitely.
Yeah, he does, absolutely. Just so much to take in, again, we were chatting off air beforehand and then on air, and there's just so much to digest that kind of makes a lot of sense, and like Derrel's helped connect some of those dots tonight in the discussion. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I do too. Like the more, it's weird because I had so many things I didn't even pull together, and every time he comes on, I feel like I pull, it makes more and more sense. Like, so it's crazy that's when you were on for the first time and you were talking about the fluorescent stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what made me think of Derrel and all of you saying it. I was just like, it's, it all kind of comes into play. You might not, I don't think your brain can handle it if it were all to flood in at one time, but how do you feel about all of it?
It's an education, isn't it?
Yeah.
The more I know, the less, or the more I sort of digest, the less I know, and the more questions seemingly that I seem to have. But 45 years old, I guess we want it all now, and that's not the way life works, is it? We're all on this journey, and I guess if we knew everything all at once, it wouldn't be called life, would it? So
I guess not. See, comes with it's definitely comes with its bumps and bruises and all of that. But you're right. I just still, like, something nags at me. I'm like, what is the point of all of this? You know what I mean? Like,
me too. It's a daily battle, but I'm sure there's a reason you're still here. I'm still here. Derrel's still here. And I think with, as Derrel alluded to, with what's about to come, it's going to get a bit bumpy. Maybe, dare I say, a little bit scary for some people. And having people such as yourself, Derrel, dare I say, even myself, it's going to be our job to educate some of these people through what we're doing on this very channel. So, let's keep at it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I've been telling everybody, so we're going to do a 6 p.m. show on Thursdays. So we have some exciting people coming up. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And then tell them on Facebook again and wherever, I guess, else you'd like them to follow you on social media.
Yeah. So Jay Austin. So that's AUSTIN, as in the Bionic Man. Feel free to send me a friend request on there. I don't post too much stuff on my personal account, dribs and drabs, and generally to promote shows like this one that we're doing tonight. But aside from that, it's the Anomalies Archives, and that's across Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, and soon to be TikTok as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, but
you got a lot of great stuff there. A lot of great stuff. I was going through it. From time to time, like, man, that's it. It's an absolutely great group. I encourage everybody to join. I did not know it stretched across to X, so I'll get that added in your bio. But I'm putting the Facebook link in there now, so everybody can see that. But yeah. Wow. So in closing, is there anything you wanted to leave the audience with?
No, just weaponize your curiosity and suspend your prejudices, as a certain researcher would say, and keep an open mind to this stuff. As I say, I've been at this tender age now. I started back in 2013 in a public way, and it constantly has challenged my preconceptions and what I thought I knew about this phenomenon. So And I think that's got to be the same for everyone, is just keep an open mind, keep a good heart, be authentic, and stay true to yourself.
Yeah, and that wasn't easy as an MMA. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine how that felt to come out. I know how I felt. It was just, but that you're right in the spotlight. So thank you for doing that.
No, you know, it's sometimes this has chosen me. It wasn't the other way around. And, you know, the more I trust in my intuition with this, the more doors seem to open. So I'm blessed and I'm grateful for that. Don't get me wrong, sometimes this drives me back crap crazy.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
you know, I think that's part of the puzzle that we've ultimately got to decipher. So
absolutely. And again, tune in Thursdays, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then real quickly, I just wanted to thank Amy for becoming a member of the Woo Crew and gifting 5 memberships. That's amazing. Harry Carey, thank you so much for the super chat. Benno, thank you so much for the super chat. And Maya, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. And thank you so much, Jay. I mean, I really love doing shows. I feel like it's so balanced. Like, you know, you really, you know, it's a great team. So I'm looking forward to going, and we're going to nail some good shows here. So stay tuned. Yeah. So thank you on behalf of SNX Radio. I'm Coley, also known as ColeyUFO, and we have usually on the opposite side. We have the talented Jay Austin. Yeah. He's not over there. He's over here.
Thank you.
And
thank you to all the wonderful people who, you know, commented and, you know, fired away with questions. And, you know, all I will encourage you to do is like, share, subscribe, and dare I say it, comment as well. So stay engaged and, see you soon.
Until next time, we will be seeing you very soon. So, here we go. We are going out, and I usually...
UFOs in the night.